Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores. We have a lot to talk about today. Most notably, there's been a report that the Washington Commanders are saving cap space money. The reason that we didn't go crazy in free agency like a lot of us wanted them to do is because they're saving that money to extend Terry McLaurin. Will they actually get it done? Will it be all for nothing? You know, not getting a lot of these top free agents that were available. If we don't end up getting those guys and not signing Terry McLaurin long term, it just seems kind of pointless, especially since Carson Wentz technically we can get out from his deal next year if we really want to. All of his $28 million of required cap hit is this year alone. So technically, if you want to pay Terry McLaurin next year, even after signing a bunch of these free agents this year that you could have done, which I would have preferred for us to do, you technically are going to be $28 million richer next year if you don't keep Carson Wentz. But we're going to dive into all of that, man, because I'm not going to lie. Right now, I am jealous of Eagles fans. Of course, seasons are not one in the off season. You got to go out there and put it on the field. But my whole philosophy of how I draft, how I attack free agency is the complete opposite of Rivera and company, and perfectly aligns with how the Rams and how the Eagles are team building. And we're going to dive into all of it. Not just us missing out on James Bradberry, because that's the catalyst for this, but it's not the main point of this discussion. Us missing out on James Bradberry does not turn the Eagles into Super Bowl contenders and does not automatically make us last in the division or something crazy. But it just further proves my point. And again, we're going to dive into all of that. But of course, we also have to talk about our first round rookie wide receiver, Jahan Dotson from Penn State, finally signing his rookie contract. We're going to break down the details and all of that. We're also going to take a look at our cap space, of course, and more. So before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you be on the lookout for all of the content. So much content coming. I'm finally watched enough film to where I'm comfortable with starting to roll out some of these film sessions. So be on the lookout for all of those. If you're not a channel member, go become one, because channel members will get all of the film sessions, including some of the undrafted free agents that I'm most interested in, whereas everybody else will probably just get a couple. I'm gonna try to do a couple that everybody gets. They're just so much more time consuming when I edit and break down everything and organize everything, put certain things in order, weaknesses and strengths. Whereas when I'm doing film session wise for my channel members, they're raw and edited. I'm just pulling up film. It can go for 20 minutes, it can go for an hour 30, and I'm just live reacting with very minimal editing. So make sure y'all stay tuned for all of that. And without further ado, and I am working on a new intro. I wanted to go ahead and get this video out. I'm actively working on a new intro right now. So, the next video, not this one that you're currently watching, which is about to come up like right now, but the next time I put out a video, which will more than likely be tomorrow, the new intro should be done by then. Let's get it. All right, so first of all, like I already said, it's been reported that Washington is saving money for McLaurin's deal. It literally says, quote, Commanders spent mildly in free agency, unquote, in part because they budgeted for re-signing star wide receiver Terry McLaurin. And this is coming from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Now, I don't know exactly how trustworthy this is, but I can believe it because I know we're normally frugal and we bargain bin shop, and it's worked out fairly well for us in the past. I mean, with guys like Charles Leno, Wes Schweitzer, Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick, just to name a few. There's even more guys than that. But at a certain point, you just got to bring guys in. And I am high on the Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner signings. But again, at some point, you got to go aim high. You got to go get great talent, guaranteed talent, high floor talent in free agency, with also high ceiling talent. In my opinion, I may be wrong, I may be right. But for how I feel like we shouldn't be bargain bin buying so much. I like that we do it to an extent. I like some of the players that we bring in, but I do want to go and get the Bobby Wagners, in this case, James Bradberrys of the world. But apparently, the reason that we are bargain bin shopping, I don't know if this was planned since years ago, and maybe that has been a reason why we've been bargain bin shopping since years ago, since Rivera's gotten here. Maybe it's all leading up to this Terry McLaurin contract situation. And we're going to look at our cap space, because as of right now, we still don't have the money to pay Terry McLaurin even after the bargain bin been shopping. You have to release a few players to even come up with the cap space to sign Terry McLaurin long term. At this point, I honestly think we're just going to end up paying Terry McLaurin at the end of the season again. Like I said before the intro, Carson Wentz technically will be an extra $28 million worth of cap space next year if we don't want to keep him. Whether it be because he's playing terribly this season, if Sam Howell looks like he can be just as great, if not better, but on a rookie contract, a fifth round rookie contract, or if Carson Wentz just keeps getting hurt and we don't want to invest in him. Either way, if we want to move on from Carson Wentz, that's an extra $28 million worth of cap space just next year alone, along with how much the cap space is going to rise just because every season other than the pandemic season, the cap space has risen. I mean, with the new Amazon deal, all of that type of stuff. And we still have quite a few guys we still need to pay. Like, people forget we do have to pay other guys like Cole Holcomb, for example, and many others. So, we got to figure out this cap space situation, but it always seems like the great teams figure it out. I don't want to necessarily say cap space is a myth, but the great teams find a way. And we're just not one of those teams that knows how to finesse the system somehow. I don't know how the teams are doing it. We're not doing it. And I'm definitely thinking that Terry McLaurin's extension, whatever new contract he gets, is going to be somewhere around what A.J. Brown got. So I'm definitely thinking $22 million per year plus at the very least. And I think he definitely deserves that, but we're gonna have to find a way to budget around this. And it's just crazy because the Carson Wentz deal, the whole situation of trading for him, the losing the picks, and then probably even a second round pick next year, and the fact that we've had to release so many guys or let them walk like Tim Settle, Matt Ioannidis, and not being able to sign top free agents like James Bradberry, who we're gonna talk about soon, or the Bobby Wagners, or just any of these guys that we missed out on. I know some people wanted Allen Robinson. We're missing out on all of these players, most notably, and we still cannot afford to pay Terry McLaurin long term because we traded for Carson Wentz. So I'm really hoping this Carson Wentz thing really works out. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the situation just because of how much it hurt us in different ways. But I mean, at this point, with how everything is falling, draft capital wise, cap space wise, I hope Carson Wentz goes out there and looks like his 2017 self minus the injuries. I really do. I really hope it all becomes worth it, because if he balls out, it does. If you have an elite quarterback, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL as far as production at the very least, I don't know, you can argue talent, you can argue whatever, but if Carson Wentz goes out there and plays like a top 10 quarterback, everything is completely worth it. Honestly, $28 million per year is cheap if he plays like a top 10 quarterback. The picks we gave up to get him would be very cheap in comparison. So I'm really rooting for him to go ball out. I really am, because if he doesn't, if he completely fails, if he keeps getting hurt, if he plays terribly, it's really going to come back to bite us. This huge domino effect of everything that's gone down since we traded for Carson Wentz. But back to Terry McLaurin, just remember that he is signed through this year. This is the final year of his contract. Remember, he was a third round pick, not a first round pick. That's why he wasn't eligible for a fifth year option. So he's playing through his last year right now. I highly doubt we end up in another Brandon Scherff, Kirk Cousins situation where we end up franchise tagging them and things like that. And then it's also interesting too, because add Daron Payne to that list. What are we going to do with Daron Payne with all of the money? I mean, maybe, again, $28 million worth of cap space if you move on from Carson Wentz. But ultimately, the goal is for Carson Wentz to ball out, and you don't have to move on from him. And the way his contract is set up, you can release him for free after this year. But if you want to keep him, he would be extremely cheap per year, again, if he's playing like a top 10 quarterback. This Carson Wentz situation can either be really great or terrible. There's really no in between, honestly. And so back to Terry McLaurin, he's on his final year. I don't think we'll franchise tag him. And I think ultimately, even if we keep Carson Wentz, say Carson Wentz balls out, we win a playoff game or two, we won the NFC East, whatever. I mean, make it to the Super Bowl or not. If we make it to the playoffs, win a game or two, that's pretty successful, especially if it's because of him. And then I think at the end of the year, we will find a way to pay Terry McLaurin long term. Probably restructure some more contracts and all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, again, not even just Daron Payne, Landon Collins as well. We asked him to take a pay cut. He was like, cool. And I never thought he'd be actually willing to take a pay cut. And then after he verbally agreed to take that pay cut, we traded for Carson Wentz. And then they were going up to him and asking him to take another pay cut. He's like, all right, nah, now y'all trying me. Now y'all playing. And so that's how we got into the situation with him. So we should get another $10 million worth of cap space, and hopefully that will be used to pay Terry McLaurin long term, I'm assuming. Whatever, we still have to pay a couple of more draft picks, but the most expensive one is out of the way in Jahan Dotson. We're going to talk about that later in his contract details, like the exact numbers and everything. But there may be a situation where after we clear up that $10+ million worth of cap space as of June 1st, when Landon Collins becomes a June 1st cut, that maybe we bring him back for extremely cheap. I would prefer so. We do have a lot of candidates that may be able to fill that Buffalo nickel role, but we already know who definitely can and who can do it very well, and that's Landon Collins. So if you can bring him back for very cheap, please do. But the priority for sure right now is to pay Terry McLaurin long term. Of course, the quarterback position matters the most in the sport, arguably the most important position in all sports, like period, regardless, football, basketball, soccer, whatever. So you gotta get that right, and that's just another reason why I really hope Carson Wentz balls out. But after that, please get Terry McLaurin to stay here long term. He's not just your best offensive player talent wise, but he's also the face of your franchise. And not just because he balls out, but like the things he says, how he carries himself off the field, work ethic. I mean, says all of the right things. And Jahan Dotson's pretty much a clone. Like, they both, you just can't even really tell where they're from. They have like no accent. They just speak very well. It's really funny how identical they are with their speaking. But Terry McLaurin says all of the right things, and I mean, he's just their super face of franchise guy. He's the guy that you showcase the most when you change the name, had new jerseys, new helmet, new logo, all of that type of stuff. He's literally the franchise, even more than Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, and all of these guys. Keep that man long term, please. But again, I did want to talk about the James Bradberry situation. I already knew that wasn't going to happen because we just don't have $10 million to give up. But he signed a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Eagles, so he's getting paid good money, decent money. If we're talking about on a per year basis, he should be getting paid in the 20s. But $10 million is pretty good for a 1-year prove-it deal so that you can jump back into free agency the following year and go get that huge money that he's probably looking for. We'll probably get 25 a year next year. Probably going to get paid more than Denzel Ward, Jair Alexander, all of those guys, because every free agency cycle, there becomes a new richest man at the position group. That's just how it is. Every year, guys just get paid more, usually, for the most part. And I'm expecting James Bradberry to be one of those guys. So, I mean, for the Eagles side, it's kind of weird because, like, are you in a Super Bowl win now mode? Is that what you're trying to do? Because you're only getting them for 1 year. And I'm not even exactly sure if they'll have the cap space to sign him long term for the money that he wants. But luckily, they didn't have to give up draft picks to get him. So that was smart on their part. And only paying him $10 million this year is very cheap for him. But are they just getting him on a 1-year rental, like a prove-it deal for him? But are they in win now mode to try to go do what they can with as far as the Super Bowl run after trading for AJ Brown? And again, the reason why I said I was jealous of Eagles fans is because how aggressive they're being. Me, I'm the complete opposite philosophy of team building from the Commanders with Rivera Mayhew. I mean, the bargain bin shopping, the not being extremely aggressive to get your quarterback. You can argue Carson Wentz was technically an aggressive move, but you know me, I'm prefer to trade up in the draft. You got to get your guy or go and get the top guy. And of course they tried to get Russell Wilson, so I can't really dock them for that. But then even just outside of the quarterback position, just guys like James Bradberry out there, so many good free agents this past free agency cycle, and we just went after none of them. We just got a whole bunch of former Panthers. And again, I'm not even mad at the former Panther thing like a lot of people are. I think Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner are signed to ridiculously great value contracts. The amount of money they're getting paid compared to how productive I think they'll both be huge steals. But at the same time, I really want us to take more risk. I'm not just jealous of the Eagles, I'm jealous of the Rams because of how aggressive they were at putting together a Super Bowl winning team, and then it worked, and I had to root for them because they just completely align with my philosophy of do what you got to do. Take the biggest risk. If you fall on your face, you fall on your face, but at least you say you tried. I'm definitely the personality, even just outside of football and team building. I prefer to know that I tried and failed than to just not try at all. And it seems like the Commanders are the complete opposite. They're just going to play it safe and do what they got to do to tread water and to stay afloat. And then, of course, there's an extra layer because the Eagles also took 2-star Georgia Bulldog players. So that's another reason. But I don't want to dive into that too long because, I mean, nothing I say is going to change the fact that we are playing it very safe while a lot of other teams are going as aggressive as possible and making things happen. And granted, a lot of those teams are going to aim for big and fall very low and end up being terrible teams, but some of those teams are going to aim for big and actually hit big, while we're just going to, you know, be somewhere in the middle, somewhere around average, maybe above average for who knows how long. And y'all already know me, man. I don't like being perpetually average. And it's not even just draft pick wise, because of course if you tank, you lose a lot of games, you have a chance at a way better pick, a franchise changing pick, a franchise changing player. But even ignoring the contingency plan of trying really hard and failing, I still just prefer to know that our team is trying the hardest they can to make our team better. And signing Josh Norman to that crazy contract and Albert Haynesworth to that super crazy contract does not count. That wasn't aggressive. That was just plain old stupid. To bring over Josh Norman and change the scheme that he plays in, and it just, that none of that made sense. So be smart with your aggressive decisions. But for me, again, I prefer for us to be very aggressive. I'm to put all of my eggs in one basket and see what happens. If we fail, we fail. But I understand why, as a head coach, as a team that, you know, may be somewhat on the hot seat, you want to at least be good to where that you can sell tickets so that fans come back to the stadium to have something to at least root for. Even if you're not a true Super Bowl contender, at least you're watchable, you're entertaining, and you're not losing crazy games, so you're not at risk of being fired. I understand why, you know, as a job, as a head coach, you want to at least be competent, at the very least like an 8-win team, so that you can at least sell hope. It's harder to sell hope for a 3-win team than an 8-win team. But again, for the reasons I've already explained, I prefer to shoot for the stars and land on the clouds if I got to. But even beyond that, cap space wise, Brad Spielberger, he's like a cap space analyst, and he came out with his first edition of 2022 cap health rankings, and we ranked 5th. And his cap health rankings are really interesting because it's not just the amount of cap space you have. Of course, number 1, active draft capital, how many rookie contract players you have and where they were selected. Number 2, your 2022 through 2024 effective cap space. Number 3, your total prorated money, which you want to be low. Number 4, top 51 roster valuation, of course, with the Browns number 1, so he includes talent in this, of course. It doesn't matter if you have infinite cap space and your team is sorry, basically is what he's saying. He takes that into account. And then number 5, 2023 unrestricted free agent valuation. You want that to be low as well. And he has us ranked 5th. So if we're looking at the future, it sounds like we're set up for greatness. Now, when you actually go look at the real cap space rankings, like based on how much cap space teams currently have right now, we're 24th with only $5.6 million. But again, Landon Collins, when he comes off the books, that's going to be $10+ million. So we'll be somewhere in the top 10, top 8 somewhere in actual cap space. But again, he has us ranked 5th in cap space health based on the roster that we have, future contracts, cap space all the way up to 2024. So things sound like they're looking bright. It's a complicated system and formula, an algorithm, whatever he's come up with. But hey, I'm gonna take his word for it. And y'all know I'm Mr. Optimistic, so I want to see everything work out. But again, philosophy wise, I'm the boom and bust, high ceiling, low floor guy over the safe guys. So I also completely disagree with a lot of our draft strategy this current year. But again, like I've said, and like I'm gonna expound upon in my draft review when I officially come out with it, draft grades and all of that, I basically break down why, even though my heart feels like this draft and just based on how I would draft, it's a terrible draft. But if you're looking through the lens of Rivera Mayhew and what they want out of this team and how they want this team to basically just build on the 7 wins they got last year and go out there and try to win 9 or 10 this year, but not necessarily try your hardest and do everything that you can to win a Super Bowl this year, then the draft was great. This free agency was great. So again, even though I completely disagree, being completely objective, using all logic, I understand why Rivera and Mayhew are doing the things that they're doing. But as a fan, it does hurt. But as an analyst, I fully understand. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, wide receiver Jahan Dotson has signed his 4-year deal worth roughly $15 million. He's a first-round pick, so he will have that 5th-year option. And to be exact, it's a $15,048,358 contract. And there's also a 5th-year option for the team to pick up in 2025. That's the advantage of picking guys in the first round, which is why some teams trade up to the end of the first round to get a quarterback so that they can have that 5th-year option there, or any position for any player that they may want to keep an extra year just in case to stall, so that they don't have to, like how we are with Terry Mclaurin right now. If we picked them in the first round, we wouldn't be worried about this extension this year. This would be a next year problem. But I mean, who knew that Terry Mclaurin, other really than himself, would end up being this great? I'm glad he turned out to be this great, and it's a steal in the 3rd round, but now we're struggling to figure out how to pay him. And I think struggle is a hard word. I think they're going to get it done. I think just things have to happen, like most notably Landon Collins coming off the books officially as of June 1st. Not guaranteeing they're going to get it done, not guaranteeing that it'll be done before training camp, but I think it will be done. And also just some quick stats. During his 4-year career at Penn State, Dotson appeared in 42 games, made 38 starts, recorded 183 receptions for 2,757 yards, 15.1 yards per catch, which was really good, and 25 touchdowns. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like if you like this video, if you learned anything. You learned something. You had to have learned at least something that I said today. You couldn't have known everything that I talked about. So you're legally binded to leave a like on the way out. I really appreciate y'all though, for real though. And also, man, I appreciate all of my supporters, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Man, I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.